It was a cool autumn's day when they got underway and the conference convened in Berlin. They were the best of the West, and they came to assess and contest the positions they were in. And so they laid out a map, and they started to rap about who wanted what, and agreed to a master plan to divide the land and to satisfy their greed. Angola is yours, Zimbabwe is mine, the Bugongo kingdom will split. We will not flag from our goal to conquer and hold the entire continent. While there's silver and gold and riches untold and diamonds that cover the ground, the trees are so high they blot out the sky, and millions of creatures abound. There's monster-like beasts with ivory teeth, and leopards and lions and such. There's coconut trees that sway in the breeze, and fruit trees that yield to the touch. There's rivers so wide you can't see the other side, and mountains that reach to the moon. The stars are so bright they light up the night like a beautiful clear afternoon. There's so much grain, it'll boggle your brain, and it's all ours for the taking. And by the time we grow old, we'll be swimming in gold if we live out the plans we are making. We have passed the first phase of marketing slaves, and now we must have all the rest. Let us go see the Pope and strengthen our hope and make sure that our mission is blessed. We must move right away without further delay, as this will provide the solution. Why, it's a perfect affair to relieve our despair and our commonly shared destitution. It just so happens to be our divine destiny to conquer the heathen nations. We've been granted the right to keep the heathens uptight and to teach them civilization. We will use every guise, every kind of disguise to ensure our benevolent rule. They will have our protection, and we'll give them direction by establishing mission schools. We'll give them a guard and a chastening rod and establish a measure of trust. We'll plant a seed and create a need, and then they'll be dependent on us. They will learn our speech, and then we can teach them to forget about their past. We'll change their minds until the end of time and make sure that our empires will last. We'll rule the land with an iron hand to assure a production increase, and those who rebel will send them to hell in the interest of keeping the peace. Now all that remains is to use our brains to figure an inland route. We'll meet in Brussels next year to review and compare and to sort the details out. And so they met and discussed without fanfare fuss of the rivers that ran to the sea, like the Gambia, the Niger, the Congo, the Nile, and the mighty Zambezi. And then they finalized plans, and they all shook hands and proceeded towards the door. Like a vampire horde on one accord, they embarked on Africa's shores. Then after groundwork was laid, they proceeded to invade with all the arms at their disposal. They said, we'll blow you to bits if you don't submit and accept our just proposals. You need our protection as well as direction, and we'll be benevolent masters. And if you'll stay in your places and keep smiles on your faces, you'll receive your reward hereafter. You must seize us these lands upon our demands and do whatever we say. And if you think it's a bluff and you try to act tough, well, then we'll just have to blow you away. But the people resisted when the colonists insisted, and the bloodshed started to mount. So many folks died, the animals cried, and the bodies were too numerous to count. From the east to the west, they encountered the best of Africa's defending sons, but one by one they had to succumb to the fire of the Gatling gun. But this could not quell the will to rebel, and so the struggle just went underground. And from the north to the south, they was checking it out, and they were seriously throwing down. There was Abdul-Hadi, the Amir of Algiers, and Shaka, the Zulu chief. There was Muhammad Ahmed, who took Gordon's head, and the lanky sheikhs of Mori. There was Omar Mukhtar and Hajj Abdullah, and the men from the rest of Sudan, who fought them at night and disappeared in the light like a scorpion hides in the sand. There was much blood and tears for the next 50 years, and they began to call Africa home. And from village to village, they robbed and they pillaged till the fingers were sore to the bone. Some got overzealous and others were jealous because each one wanted more. They were soon to discover that they hated each other and their problems were worse than before. It was a matter of greed superseding the need to preserve the mutual pact. They forgot they were brothers and they caught one another in this Alliance had started to crack. They had a design to build a railroad line from Cairo to the Cape. They needed to save time to connect all the mines to complete the mineral rate, but they could not proceed because of the need to deal with the Huguenots. They had landed before on South Africa's shores, and they were a mean and contentious lot. They had control of the diamonds and gold, and they thought that their mission was right. They would not yield, and they took to the fields, and they gave up a terrible fight. Greed was the cause of the Boer Wars, which further weakened their hand. The Unholy Alliance had met the defiance of the outlaws who settled the land. Then, after scores of religious wars in World Wars I and II, an organization called the League of Nations was formed to ban what to do. There had been so much destruction that it halted production and left them licking their wounds. Plus, millions of men had met their end in the cities with line and ruin. It took a world's war to open the door of freedom to colonized nations. Now was the time to thwart the design of Western colonization. So, one by one, they took up guns as an alternate solution. From the Mau Mau in the east, the violence increased to the Algerian Revolution. It reached its peak at Mozambique as it spread to Angola and Zaire. It was time to deal because the struggle was real and freedom was in the air. Some had to be forced, and some used a choice to bow out gracefully. Literally all had their backs to the wall as some settlers had started to flee. But some said it's right to stay and to fight, to protect accumulated wealth. We can't give this back to those ignorant blacks. They're not capable of governing themselves, while they'll just make a mess of all that is best and hamper the natural flow, and all we have gained will go down the drain and the entire free world will blow. So they made some decisions to make some revisions in the original plan and came up with a scheme to further their dream of continued control of the land. Let's form a pact with those newly freed blacks to keep our influence alive, and they will be still fulfilling our will, and we will continue to thrive. But the people weren't fooled by indirect rule or neo-colonial stealth. They had been schooled and they knew how to rule and were determined to govern themselves. And now freedom is gained, and all that remains entrenched on the southern tip is the Boer beast with the nuclear teeth and the land and an iron grip. He thinks he can hold the diamonds and gold, though his back is to the sea. He'll soon realize even beasts can die, and Africa will be free. Entitled The Unholy Alliance, from the pen of El-Hajj, the late El-Hajj Sheikh Suleiman Al-Hadi, recorded 1995, Paris, France. The Unholy Alliance. Back to Africa.